There is a question that many men have wanted to ask for years, not out loud, not on social media, not even to their closest friends. A question that sits quietly in the back of their minds every time they are struggling, every time they are exhausted, every time they feel like they are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. The question is this: why does nobody seem to care when a man is hurting? Think about that for a moment. A woman loses her job. People ask if she's okay. A woman goes through a breakup. People check on her. A woman says she's overwhelmed. People encourage her to open up, and they should. There is nothing wrong with compassion, nothing wrong with helping people who are struggling. But many men look around and notice something different. When a man loses his job, people often ask him what he's going to do next. When a man goes through a breakup, people tell him to move on. When a man says he's overwhelmed, people tell him to be strong. And after hearing that enough times, many men stop talking altogether. They stop explaining. They stop sharing. They stop expecting anyone to understand. And eventually, they suffer in silence. Now, before anyone misunderstands this conversation, let's make something clear. This isn't a competition. Pain is pain. Women suffer. Men suffer. Everybody suffers. The purpose of this discussion isn't to say one group has it worse than another. The purpose is to ask a difficult question. Why do so many men feel invisible when they are struggling? Why do so many men believe that the world only notices them when they are useful? Because if you talk to enough men, you'll start hearing the same story. Different ages, different countries, different backgrounds, yet somehow the same feeling. The feeling that nobody really cares about them, at least not in the way they care about others. And if we're honest, this feeling doesn't appear overnight. Most men learn it when they are boys. For example, a little boy falls down. He starts crying. What's one of the first things he hears? Get up. You're fine. Stop crying. Be a man. Nobody says those words because they hate him. In fact, most people say them because they think they're helping. They believe they're teaching resilience, strength, toughness. But what many boys actually learn is something else. They learn that vulnerability makes people uncomfortable. They learn that their pain is acceptable only if they can quickly hide it. They learn that weakness gets less sympathy than strength. And that lesson follows them into adulthood. As men get older, the expectations don't become lighter. They become heavier. A man is expected to provide, to protect, to solve problems, to remain calm under pressure, to carry burdens, to absorb stress, to stay composed, even when life is falling apart. And the strange thing is that many people admire men for this. They praise men for being strong, reliable, dependable. But the moment a man struggles beneath that weight, society often becomes confused. It's almost as if people love strong men, but don't know what to do with vulnerable ones. And that creates a painful contradiction, because every strong man is still a human being. Every provider still gets tired. Every protector still feels fear. Every leader still experiences doubt. Yet many men believe they aren't allowed to show it. Imagine carrying a backpack every day. At first, it's manageable. Then somebody adds a few bricks, then a few more, then a few more. Years pass. The weight becomes unbearable. Your shoulders hurt. Your back hurts. You're exhausted. And when you finally tell someone the backpack is getting heavy, they respond by saying, "Keep carrying it." That is what life feels like for many men. Not because nobody loves them, but because people have become so accustomed to seeing them carry burdens that they forget the burden exists. One of the biggest examples of this is loneliness. Loneliness is often talked about as if it affects only certain groups of people. But millions of men are lonely, painfully lonely, not because they don't know people, not because they're antisocial, but because they have nobody they can truly talk to, nobody they can call at midnight, nobody they can admit their fears to, nobody they can confess their failures to without feeling judged. Many men have friends, but very few have emotional support. Those are not the same thing. You can sit in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. And that's exactly what many men experience. The scary part is that society often doesn't recognize male loneliness until it becomes a tragedy, until a man completely breaks down, until he disappears, until something irreversible happens. Then suddenly everybody asks the same question. Why didn't he say anything? But maybe he did. Maybe he gave hints. Maybe he tried. Maybe nobody listened. Another reason many men feel ignored is because society tends to value men based on what they can provide. This is uncomfortable to talk about, but it's something many men quietly believe. Ask yourself a question. What happens when a successful man loses everything? His money, his status, his career, his ability to provide. Watch how differently people treat him. Many men fear failure, not because they hate failure itself. They fear what failure might reveal. They fear discovering that some people's respect was conditional, that some people's admiration depended on what they could offer. And that's a terrifying realization, because every human being wants to feel valued for who they are, not just what they produce, not just what they earn, not just what they provide. But many men spend their entire lives wondering whether that kind of love even exists for them. Then there is the issue of emotional expression. For years, society encouraged men to open up more, to express their emotions, to communicate. And that's good advice. Healthy communication matters. But here's where many men become frustrated. Some men say that when they finally opened up, they didn't receive understanding. They received judgment. They were told to be vulnerable, then criticized for what they revealed, told to share, then treated differently after sharing. Whether those experiences are common or rare isn't the point. The point is that many men believe they happened to us. And once a man feels punished for being vulnerable, he often retreats back into silence. Not because he wants to, because he thinks it's safer. This creates a cycle. Men stay quiet. People assume men don't need help. Because people assume men don't need help, support systems become weaker. And because support systems become weaker, men stay quiet. Round and round it goes, year after year, generation after generation. But perhaps the biggest reason society struggles to sympathize with men is surprisingly simple. People often see men's problems as responsibilities instead of hardships. People see men's problems as responsibilities instead of hardships. A man is stressed about paying bills. Many people think that's his responsibility. A man is overwhelmed by work. Many people think that's his responsibility. A man is struggling to support his family. Many people think that's his responsibility. And because people see these struggles as responsibilities, they stop viewing them as suffering. But responsibilities can create suffering too. Pressure can break people. Expectations can exhaust people. Responsibility can become a burden. The fact that someone is expected to carry something doesn't mean the weight isn't real. And that's something society often forgets. Now here's the part that might be controversial. Many people genuinely care about men. They really do. Mothers care, wives care, sisters care, friends care. The issue isn't necessarily that people don't care. The issue is that society often doesn't recognize male suffering when it appears in forms people aren't used to seeing. Men don't always cry publicly. Men don't always ask for help. Men don't always describe their emotions. Sometimes male pain looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like withdrawal. Sometimes it looks like working 70 hours a week. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a man sitting alone in a room, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how he's going to survive another month. And because male suffering often looks different, it frequently goes unnoticed. The tragedy isn't that men don't have feelings. The tragedy is that many men become experts at hiding them. Eventually, some men reach a dangerous conclusion. They stop believing anybody cares. They stop expecting support. They stop asking for understanding. And that belief changes them. It makes them colder, more distant, more guarded. Not because they were born that way, because experience taught them to be that way. And that's where the real damage happens. Not when a man suffers, but when he becomes convinced he must suffer alone. Because human beings were never designed to carry every burden by themselves. Not men, not women, not anyone. Every person needs support. Every person needs understanding. Every person needs compassion. The strongest people in the world still need someone to lean on. And maybe that's the lesson we need to remember. Maybe the goal isn't to argue about who suffers more. Maybe the goal is to recognize suffering wherever it exists. Maybe the goal is to stop assuming that strength means invulnerability, because strength and pain can exist in the same person. A man can be strong and exhausted, strong and lonely, strong and depressed, strong and struggling. Those things are not opposites. They're realities. And perhaps if more people understood that, fewer men would feel invisible. Fewer men would suffer in silence. Fewer men would feel like they have to carry the entire world by themselves. So the next time a man tells you he's struggling, don't immediately tell him to be strong. Maybe he's been strong for 20 years. Maybe strength isn't what he needs at that moment. Maybe what he needs is exactly what every human being needs. To be heard, to be understood, to know that his pain matters too. Because at the end of the day, every person wants the same thing. Not pity, not special treatment, just the comfort of knowing that if they fall, somebody will notice. And for many men, that's all they've ever wanted. If this video spoke to you, let us know in the comments. Do you think society ignores men's problems? Or do you think things are changing? Share your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more relationship psychology, dating insights, and conversations that most people are afraid to have. Because sometimes the most important conversations are the uncomfortable ones.